in order to define the rhythm of English, we really need to concentrate not on lexical stress, but on sentence stress. And we need a basic unit of rhythm. Now, the basic unit of rhythm is usually called the foot. The structure of the foot in English can be viewed in a number of different ways. I'm going to take a very simple view of it for the time being. And the structure of the foot in English consists of a sentence stressed syllable, and that is obligatory, more or less. We'll come to see cases where it isn't so obligatory later on. Followed by a number of unstressed syllables. There don't have to be any unstressed syllables in the foot, so the lower limit of the number of unstressed syllables is 0. I don't know that there is any theoretical upper limit, so we'll have to put a question mark for that. I suppose that most feet have 1 or 2, maximum of about 5, I would think, but that's not a theoretical maximum. So that's the structure of the foot. A stressed syllable, sentence stressed syllable, not a lexically stressed syllable, followed by some unstressed syllables, maybe 0, maybe 1, 2, 3. Now, I've given you some examples on the first page of your handout of some sentences, some utterances divided into feet. So if you look at example A on your handout, everybody found that? John is coming on Saturday. The way I have the sentence stress pattern of that, I've got a sentence stress on John, that's what I'm using that mark for, and come on and sat. So I've got 3 feet. And the first one is Johnny's, the second is coming on, and the third one is Saturday. In B, you can see that I've marked 4 syllables as being sentence stressed. That's the way I want to say this sentence. So I've got 4 feet. The first one is how. That has a sentence stressed syllable. And it doesn't have any unstressed syllables following it. Did she re is the next foot. Member hisa is the next foot. And dress is the final foot. So in that, I've got 4 feet. C, the same sentence, but with a different stress pattern, a different sentence stress pattern now, so a different rhythm. I've only got 3 sentence stress syllables in C, how, mem, and dress. So the first foot is, how did she read? Second foot is, member hisa, and the final foot is dress. So let me say those sentences for you, see how they sound. A is, John is coming on Saturday. B is, how did she remember his address? B, I'll do again, how did she remember his address? And C is, how did she remember his address? So you can hear the difference in rhythm between B and C, even though it's the same sentence. The first one goes, how did she remember his address? And the second one, how did she remember his address? Okay, now, the important thing about the foot in English is that feet tend to last the same amount of time as other feet in the utterance, no matter how many syllables there are in them. So if you've got a foot with 1 syllable, and the next foot has got 4 syllables in it, in order for the 1 foot syllable to take up the same amount of time, more or less, as a 4 syllable foot, then you have to squash the time allowed for each syllable, compress the time allowed for each syllable, in order to fit those 4 syllables into more or less the same time as the 1 syllable. Okay? That is called the principle of isochronicity, which is a nice word. So, feet in English tend to be isochronous. If you actually go and measure them carefully, then you'll find that they're not exactly the same amount of time, but they sound as though they are. Okay, so there is certainly some compression of syllables. So it is not the case that a one-syllable foot is a quarter of the length of a four-syllable foot. There is compression of the time for that for each syllable in that four-syllable foot to make it more like the duration for the one-syllable foot. Let's have a little example of this. D, I've got Mary had a little lamb with 4 feet in it. So, lambs do have 4 feet, don't they? Mary had a little lamb. Mary had a little lamb. Concentrate on Mary. Got 2 syllables in that book, yes? Mary had a little lamb. Now, I'm going to say the sentence again, but I'm going to change the name from Mary to something else. And it's going to have 3 syllables in it. So I've got to say those 3 syllables quicker to fit them into the same time as I had for the 2 syllables of Mary. So, Mary had a little lamb. Algernon had a little lamb. Da-da-da. Oh, Mary had... Algernon had a... So, the 3 syllables of Algernon are a bit quicker. Another example, if you concentrate on the last foot now, in my first example I had 1 syllable, lamb. I've got a lot of time to say that. If I put more syllables in that, then I'm going to have to speed up at the end. So, Mary had a little lamb. Mary had a little alligator. Da 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 da. Okay? So those 4 syllables. Funny person, Mary. So is Algernon, actually. We have to squash the time amount, for those 4 syllables quite considerably to fit them into more or less the same time as I took for lamb in the other utterance. Now, of course, one can speed up generally and slow down generally, so I can talk very quickly or I can slow down and talk rather slowly. So I can talk at a different tempo, but when I speed up I tend to speed up all of the feet. When I slow down I tend to slow down all of the feet, okay? So it's not got anything to do with speed as such, but something to do with the relative speeds of different syllables. Okay? Now, other languages don't do this. Other languages tend, for example, to give the same amount of time for each syllable. One good example of a language like this is French. Okay, so have we got any French speakers here? Right. I'm going to try and imitate a French accent. Please don't be insulted. Okay? If I say, Mary had a little lamb, in my normal English accent, Mary had a little lamb. And then I say the same sentence in a sort of French accent, it will sound rather like this. Mary had a little lamb. Da 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 da. Instead of da 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 da. Okay? Each syllable more or less the same amount of time. Mary had a little lamb. Okay, so that's the principle of isochronicity. There's one slight complication. Sometimes you find utterances that don't begin with a stressed syllable. All of the utterances that I've used so far, the first syllable bore a sentence stress. However, it's possible to find utterances where the first syllable is not sentence stressed. What happens then is we've got a sort of defective foot. Okay, we've got a foot which hasn't got a sentence stressed syllable in it. It's just got some unstressed syllables at the beginning of the utterance. We've got an example of G on your handout, example of G. You can see that I've got sentence stressed syllables marked on C, brel, and N. But the first 2 syllables are unstressed. So the 3 full feet that I've got in this sentence are see my umbrella anywhere. The first 2 don't have the first two syllables don't have a sentence stress syllable preceding them. Those two syllables are an example of what is called an anacrusis, which is another nice word. And the thing about anacruses is that they tend to be uttered very rapidly so that you don't disturb the rhythm too much. And in fact, very many of the things like elisions of consonants and stuff like and compressions of syllables take place in anacruses to make them even shorter. So, if I say that sentence, it will go something like, if you see my umbrella, if you see my umbrella anywhere, if you see my umbrella anywhere, I can make the anacrusis even shorter. I can get rid of the first vowel and say, if you see my view, we like to get over these anacrusis as quickly as we possibly can. So that's a little bit about the rhythm.